What are your craziest babysitter stories? Either with you being the babysitter or the baby. I'll go first. One time, when I was 12, I caught my babysitter, who was probably 17 at the time, smoking a joint. I had no idea it was pot. I just thought it was a funny looking cigarette. Anyway, she told me not to tell my mom, but I just stared at her blankly. Then she got really red in the face and nervously said, "If you promise not to tell anyone, I'll let you see my boobs." I got all excited and embarrassed and bashfully agreed. I've told many of my friends throughout the years, so I ended up breaking the promise. Was babysitting this little girl who had issues sleeping when her parents weren't in the house. Parents told me she could sleep in their room to comfort her. Child discovers giant dildo and gives it to the basset hound thinking it's a chew toy. Have to chase down basset hound to retrieve vibrating giant dildo. Don't know what to do with dildo. Place dildo on child's parents' dresser. Tell child to never speak of this night again. I was babysitting my cousin. I can only imagine how awkward the parents were when they saw the dildo in a different spot. With teeth marks on it. Oh dear God. And white slobber. When I was like 10, my babysitter told me he would give me 10 to help him find my dad's nudie mag stash. We looked at vintage 70s Playboy together for like 3 hours. First time I ever saw full bush. Oh, you can almost see some skin. A neighbor from up the street used to babysit me when I was like 8. He was probably 15 over 16 at the time. When he realized I liked computers and video games, he introduced me to and gave me Command and Conquer, and later, when it came out, Red Alert. He would bring his computer over and we would play multiplayer over a null modem cable. If I won, I got to stay up later for each game I won past the bedtime my parents set, and if he won I'd have to help him with his chores when he watched me at his house. I learned damn quick how to beat him after he made me wash his parents' cars and do dishes. I stopped going to bed on time and he would have me play on his team to kick his friends' asses. One of the coolest babysitters in this post. That didn't end in molestation. I was so waiting for, and if he won, I would have to suck his penis. Some babysitter who didn't speak much English, and apparently couldn't really read much either, gave my sister wine or maybe alcoholicsy idea because it was in a plastic container in the fridge and she thought it was apple juice. Sister was probably about 3 or 4. Early in my childhood, my mom was a single parent, and I regularly had 16 to 20-year-old male babysitters. They used to smoke pot in the bathroom, but since I was only 6 to 10 years old, I didn't really understand that. They used to wrestle with me all voluntary by me and play video games with me. They treated me like I was one of the group, even though they were over 10 years older than me on most cases. Not the craziest story, but a nice story for an only child. I took a job down the street when I was in high school, too young to drive, probably 14. On a school night. I was poor. The parents told me they had one child, to be there at 6, and that they paid generously. Thus into the night, I quickly discovered they had not 1, not 2, but 3 children. WTF. Anyway, they said they'd be home by 9:30 p.m. Well, 9:30 came and went, and they didn't come home. I waited and waited and waited all night. They finally came home at 3:30 a.m. mind you, I had school the next day. Totally steep-faced drunk. They offered to drive me home. I politely declined and ran home. The killer? They only gave me 20. Needless to say, I never sat for them again. TL. Doctor, people had more kids than they thought. Your TL. Doctor killed me. How does that even happen? When I was about 12 or 13, I was babysitting for a neighbor. They had a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. I usually played around with the son, as he was just old enough to not feel like I was humoring a little kid. The little sister would just tag along. For some reason, she had a fit that day that I never played with her. I felt bad, as I was kind of ignoring her and didn't want her to tell her parents that I didn't dole out the play fairly. So I decided to play dolls with her. He brother got mad and starting having a little fit about it. I rolled my eyes at him, told him he wasn't a baby and could handle me playing with his sister, and went into her room because she wanted to play with the big dollhouse that was in there. I play with her for a couple minutes, then hear the son's footsteps stop in the hall in front of the open door. I turn around, expecting to end up rolling my eyes at him again. He is holding an axe, a little one, Boy Scouts I think, and looks very mad. I reflexively close the door and hold it shut. He starts hacking at the door. I have my back up against it, holding it shut, and keep imagining him hacking all the way through it into my back. I'm screaming and crying for him to please stop. I will play with him. I'm sorry, please. His parents came home with amazing timing right about then. He runs into his own room, and I run downstairs to them as quickly as I can. Told them what happened, etc. I wonder what happened to him. Was his name? All work and no play makes this a great reference. One time when I was about 5, my sister and I were staying at our mom's friend's house while our parents went out. While we were asleep on the floor in the living room with her asleep on the couch behind us, her ex-husband/boyfriend came in and strangled her to death. He didn't touch us. Did you sleep through it, or did you wake up to see it happening? Was her body discovered by you, or when your parents got home? What happened to the boyfriend? Do you have a link to a news article? I'm pretty sure I slept through it, because I can't remember anything. One of the last things I remember saying to her is something about not liking the white Kool-Aid pop she tried to give me. I woke up while I was being carried out by my parents. It happened at her house. There were emergency lights everywhere. I didn't really know what was going on. This was back in 1991 to 1992, so I don't know if I can find a link now, but I'll ask my mom about the woman's last name. Please deliver. I'll ask tomorrow, as she's sleeping right now. The babysitter's first name is Susan. Her ex-husband/baby daddy's name is Billy. It happened in Des Moines, Iowa around 1990 to 1991, if any sleuths want to look around. I went through about 10 pages of Google and didn't find anything. There is a reference to a life sentence here that might be from this incident. William Helm Jr. was sentenced to life in prison for the strangulation death of his wife. A jury in July convicted Helm, then 24, of murder in the slaying of his wife Susan, 24, who was found strangled in her Des Moines house last September. Des Moines, 1991. Strangled in own house. Billy. Susan. Fits quite well. The incident would then have been in September of 1990. Not Opus. Delivers anyway. You are the best kind of person. When I was like 4 or something, I walked in on my babysitter trying on all my mom's clothes. It was a girl, probably 16, over 17 years old, in front of her boyfriend. She was kind of embarrassed, but just told me to go downstairs for a while, which I did. Whatever. I was 4. Everything is pretty weird to me at this point. Anyways, I innocently relayed the story to my mom the next day, and I never saw that babysitter again. Big surprise there. I think that boyfriend had a thing for you, mother. Stacy, can't you see that I'm never gonna give you up? So why don't you take a minute and just sit right there in the front seat, sittin' in the back seat. Gotta make my mind up. When I was about 15, my neighbors would hire me to watch their 2-year-old girl. One evening the phone rang and I answered. A woman asked who I was. I said I was a babysitter. She hung up, and 10 minutes later, the cops show up. If this happened now, they would probably send the SWAT team, as the grown mother was quite shocked to hear a male voice on the phone, claiming to be the babysitter. I'm lucky I didn't get arrested. Wait, all of that happened just because you were a dude babysitter? WTF, granny. When I was about 13 or so, I babysat for all the little neighbor kids. I was the oldest on the block, so for maybe 5 families at different times. One family lent my name to another friend a few blocks away. They had 3 kids. The girl was about 6 and peeping amazingly sweet and awesome. Her brothers, about 4 and 7, were demon spawn. They ran around the house throwing things, punching the girl until she hid in my arms all night, screaming, making messes. The younger boy pulled his peeping dick out and pissed on the living room floor while we watched a movie. I didn't even know what to do. Then the older one got mad when I yelled at him about something, locked him and the other brother in their bedrooms, and wouldn't open it until their parents got home. The family apologized, and I never went back there. Apparently they'd been through like 5 babysitters in a year. Makes me afraid to have boys. When I was 12, my mom hired a 13-year-old boy and a girl to babysit. Had your mother ever met a 13-year-old boy before? When I was 11, I was not allowed to go to my neighbor's funeral. He was 70-ish. The crazy soccer moms in my neighborhood didn't want to expose their children to funerals at such a young age. So they told my parents that they were not allowed to take my brothers and I to the funeral either, because it wouldn't be fair, even though the guy who died's wife wanted us there, and my brothers and I had been to probably 10 funerals at that point. It was a dumb situation. So basically half of the neighborhood kids went to one house and were babysat by a 17-year-old. The other half went to another house. I'm female. This 17-year-old chick sat by on the computer on some chat room while I was beaten up by a group of 5 kids, tied to a pole, and one of the boys tried to take my pants off at the bidding of the other kids. They were ages 6 to 13. My closest friend in the neighborhood happened to get home. We were at his parents' house and saw this happening. He tried to get the babysitter to help him untie me, but she was like, "No, kids will be kids." He tried to talk them down and out of it, and they started beating him up, too, and tied us face to face. And that's the first time I ever kissed a boy. Damn. What was the outcome? Parental discipline? I believe all of the kids involved were punished by their parents and the babysitter wasn't paid or invited back to babysit. The parents were also scolded/yelled at by my mother. Chelsea Clinton, daughter of President Bill Clinton, used to babysit me when her father was governor of Arkansas from 1989 to 1992. I was 123 at the time. I now have dinner with President Clinton occasionally when he comes into town due to the same family connections that enabled Chelsea to babysit me. I once purposely walked into the bathroom when my babysitter was like 15. I was 8, had just gotten out of the shower. Totally worth it. I like your style. Once when I was probably like 8 or 9, my parents asked a girl from church over to babysit me and my sister who was 3 or 4. She put us to bed and fell asleep on the couch. My parents told us when they came in she was talking in her sleep and said, "They're my crayons, and I don't have to pick them up." It became a running joke in our family for some reason. Not crazy, but a little funny. I was spending a couple weeks at my best friend's house when she was asked to babysit 3 kids. So I went with her. I think we were probably 15. And one of the kids was a 13-year-old boy. All of the kids were unruly in different ways, throwing around a pet mouse, filling up water balloons, etc. But the 13-year-old boy grabbed a lighter and started running around the house threatening to light things on fire. I chased him upstairs to his parents' room, where he locked me in with him and tried to push me on the bed/climb on top of me. It was very unsettling. Found out years later that my babysitter was my mom's pot connection. One of my first babysitting jobs was when I was 16 and I babysat 3 young kids. The family were avid hunters and the oldest kid, probably 9, regularly told me how he wanted to tie me up and shoot me. The same child also locked me out of the house and shot at me with water guns. The middle child, around 6, hated wearing pants and underwear, and I often had to chase her around the house worrying the neighbors were going to call the police on me as I chased a screaming naked child from room to room. Good times. So it was pretty much the same as babysitting any 3 kids. Suspected my very hot babysitter was gonna peep her boyfriend, So I set the intercom in my parents' room to broadcast throughout the house.